Okay. So one of the keys to realistic drawing is really being able to draw parallel lines. Okay. And just a good practice. If you're just like looking for some brainless way of starting to get better at drawing. And we were doing, in drawing one, I teach you guys, and earlier on in the semester, I taught you guys about drawing a ribbon. And if you consider this, like if you look at this one and we think to ourselves, here's a plane I'm looking down on it, the top of this will work like that, okay? Whereas if I have this one and I'm looking up at that one, the top of that one will work like this. In profile, a head has the cranial mass, and then about halfway through, that's about where the jaw comes to, okay? And you could think of it, if you really want to simplify it, you could be like, there's a circle and there's a triangle, and it comes to about halfway, okay? It sits on the neck like this, and between here and here, depending on age, you could drop back like that, or an older person like that. So when we start to approach this, what I'm looking at here is I start a kind of, you can think of it as a ribbon that passes beyond that circle there. I have another way to think about it is as a P. Like if you just take and you draw a P like that, and then you go like this, you turn it into a block letter. So whatever combination of these things, like you want to be able to, you want to be able to simplify this volume to a point where you can move it around fluidly, to a point where you can take it and you can say like, okay, if I think of it as a P, I can turn it in space really easily. I can go like this, and if the line is not level, then I'm going to see some of this side. So I'm seeing at this point lots and lots of the front plane and not much of the side plane. But then as it turns more, I see more of the side plane and less of the front plane. Of course, this is like old for you guys, but along these lines, the features will be lined up along that perspective, right? So that gives you a perspective, and they'll also cut back this way. The head will also cut back that way in perspective. So you want to be able to really turn this thing around. You want it to be like a shape that you can really play with. So let's talk about that shape, and we'll start to let's see. I'll start to relate it to a skull for us. So there's this whole top part of the skull. This whole top part of it is like one single unit. It's like from here to there, and then this part is really kind of a separate unit. To have this look a little bit more accurate, what you would do is you would go like that and like that. In men, this tends to be more broad. In women, it tends to be more like that. Okay. This part of the face, this right here, that part of the brow comes forward. Okay. At about the level of the ear, at about this level, is about the bottom of the nose. The nose comes out. On the nose, we'll go in depth with it, but for right now, notice that angle, that angle, that angle, and that angle. Okay. Also notice that it comes back there. Okay. Now, here, this skull actually ends like there, okay? And now the dental arch here, it sticks forward about like a golf ball. Like it comes forward. The nose overlaps there, and this comes out like this. Okay, and the chin, it's called the mental protuberance. It's kind of funny that it's called the mental protuberance. It's in boxing, they say you've got a glass jaw, and they say if you get hit on the button, this is called the button. If you get hit on the button, if you have a glass jaw, it knocks you out. So it's bad for boxers. So you can take this set of shapes here and you can start thinking them through like with this. You could be like, okay, here's this and over and around and down. Okay. Here's a cheekbone right there. The cheekbone in perspective. Boom. There's always a cool lesson. There's a cool lesson in the George Bridgman book, and what he taught, he shows a piece of molding. He's like, okay, here's a here's a piece of trim that would be in a corner. And then he says, if it's lit, like say the light is coming from over here, what's going to happen is like this stuff in here falls into shadow, and then it gradually turns out of shadow. And this stuff in here falls in shadow, and then it gradually turns out. This stuff in here falls in shadow, and that falls in shadow. And the face works the face is very similar, right? So like if there's a light over here, the first thing that's going to happen is the side of the face is going to be in shadow and the front of the face is going to be in light. So this part of the face here, like a cube, and a lot of times this is taught with a cube, the side of the face will be in shadow, the front of the face will be in light. And then you get this effect where it's coming down and curling across that bit of molding. It's coming down and curling under. It's curling under, okay? There's this other important, there's this right here, okay? So part of what we have to learn to do is we have to learn to see the circles and squares in relationship to each other. So for instance, you can consider right here the corner of your face. Like these can be considered corners. You see the way that I'm using, you see the way that here it looks like a corner? There's a bone there. There's a bone there. It's not the zygomatic arch. It's the temporal arch right here. There, it comes up like this and goes over. Okay. And it's like right here, and it forms the side plane of the eye socket and goes down into the bone that becomes your cheekbone, the zygomatic arch right here. And it connects back to where your ear is. Okay, there's this bone right here and right there and right there. And that's where the light changes. Okay, so if we're going to think of the front plane of the face, it's common to place the eyes at halfway, okay? And then halfway down to there is the bottom of the nose, and then halfway down to there is the bottom lip, the bottom of the bottom lip, okay? So the upper lip sits up here. This portion of the face right here, there's a side plane. Okay, the temporal ridge right here forms a kind of side plane. Then you move back into this part of your skull, and what you run into is this it sort of comes outward a little bit. It kind of rounds out a little bit. The top of the head has a kind of it's not a triangle, it's not a flat line, and it's not one of those. It's something in between all of those, okay? It kind of goes up in the middle, flattens out a little bit. It's like it's got two planes right here, right? And then notice this great shelf, okay? So the eyes are going to come up in here, but there's this, you see this guy ending right here? So really, the cranial mass, we call it the cranial mass, ends about right there, right at the brow. So all of this stuff is the cranial mass. And then down here, we call this the face, okay, the face mask, okay? And so sitting in here are the eye sockets. We'll talk in depth about the eye sockets. One thing I want you to know about them is that there's a thing that goes on where on the edges, on the eye sockets sit on the head like this. Like if we were to look down at the head, here's the back, and then moving forward into the face like this, okay? The eye sockets sit like this. So they sit back further out here, and they go in this way, okay? Let's start our shaping of the eye sockets with this bone right here. So there's a sort of a keystone-shaped bone right in there. And look at the way, you see this? You see the way it turns downward? It's like a bit of a triangle. It's shaped like this. The brow comes in and ends right about there. And then the bones of the nose start in there. So look at this nice shape right here. Now, the thing about that is you want to give it depth. So it's got a bottom right there. And that right there forms the inner corner. That forms the inner corner of the eye socket. This end here is very typically in shadow. And the eye socket, while it's going this way, is also going back, okay? So while it's working its way this way, it's also working its way back. And then it gently turns around, and where it's turning around, that's this. You see this? That's this right there. the bottom, there's like here, you can almost think of it as a corner, okay? It's kind of like that. And what's going on is this bone right here is coming up, and it sits, there's this almost a ball here, okay? You can think of this shape. It's the maxilla, and it's kind of a ball. And you get, and here it is, you see this? And then you can see the zygomatic arch landing on it. This is the zygomatic arch. And so those guys are right here. And they turn inwards and they land on this ball right in here. And the nose sits on top of it. It starts about here, okay? There's this part of the nose that goes down. It sits here like this. That's the bottom of the nose. It sits on top of this ball. Here's the first shape of the nose. The second shape of the nose, kind of like this. For right now, I'll be kind of like that. So there's this side plane here, and it really comes from here, and it widens over. And a lot of the time, so I'm trying right now to show you the volume of the nose. You'll get a hard corner right here, but this transition is always really soft. Almost always it's really soft. It's like a very gradual transition into the plane of the face. It's a very gradual transition into the plane of the face. Okay. And that leaves us, so these are two bones in here coming down, and then it has a kind of a diamond shape like that. So it has a kind of a shape like this. And then you get the ball of the nose right here. And that's where you see this. So where the ball of the nose, so you see we've got on the nose, we've got this major turn right here, and we've got this major turn right here. What happens is we go from this keystone bone into the bridge of the nose, into the ball of the nose, and those are all very separate units on the face. Those are all, like, you can see those, you know, they work differently on different people. I mean, you could have a nose that goes, here's a skull, and you could come in like this, and you could have a nose that goes like that. But what's happening is those are the bones, that's the flesh at the end of the nose, okay? They just have, like, different people have different shaped noses. However, the principle of the shapes is all the same. The shapes change at the same places. So someone could have a little... The other thing is, another thing that makes this shape really interesting and cool is that there's another bone right here, like this, and it's almost like bird wings. It's called the glabella. It's right here, and like when someone has a really pronounced brow, and a big, beautiful glabella, right? And someone has like this, and it gives somebody like dark brow look, you know, you're like, wow, that's That guy's looking out from the shadows, you know? That's cool. So it's like right here, these kind of bird wings right there. And actually, you know, very frequently there will be a shadow right here, right? Because what's going on is, so if you think that someone's got their glabella right there, and what's going on is this. If you're thinking of this as a circle, right, and here's another circle, the glabella mounted on it, and then there's a cutout there for the brow. So the light, if the light is coming this way, you can imagine it's most direct right there, and then it starts to move into shadow, and then it's very light right there too. Okay? So you end up with this kind of an effect, like this ends up being in shadow, that ends up being in light, and then this stuff in here drops into shadow. Okay, so the zygomatic arch right here, it's the widest part of the face. So it comes out and it forms this kind of like, it's almost like two hands. Like it's like you can think of this as a thumb and like fingers coming in like this. It's almost like, it almost sits like this on your face. These two thumbs coming up this way, and this reaches in and grabbing hold of your face, like right there. And it holds the eyeballs, like the eyeballs sit in those two things, like two little cups. Okay? It's the widest part, again, of the face. The jawbone inserts below what would be the wrist. Okay, you see this comes back like this, and the jawbone inserts in there. And when it comes down at about the level of the mouth, that's where you find the angle of the jaw. This is the angle of the jaw. That's about the level of the mouth. That's the angle of the jaw. Okay, here's the mouth. There's the angle of the jaw. Okay. At that point, the jaw turns inward. So if we're going to take this guy, if we just threw that down as a sketch, but we want to like see it develop further, one of the easiest moves for us is to find a center. And I made it further one way than the other. Like, see how this space is bigger than that space because I'm forcing the perspective. This is right there, the jaw. The jaw goes inwards and over, okay, up. Here's the zygomatic arch. There's there's the cheekbone. This is often considered the corner here. So very frequently what happens is shadow begins there. So why don't you guys on your own for a moment try to draw a few of those? I'll come around and have a quick look, and then I want to go through and address the main fat pads on the face. They're a big key to expression. When will I get you to trust and grow in a line? Just like it's beautiful. Just let it go. Practice parallel lines. One thing is when we're is that on that side, we're going to run into for a little while I had this thing going where I was like, if I had a jaw here, I would have it because they're, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like those go together. No matter what, you can't, you know. And the only way you don't have that straight up in the face. Yeah. So this guy goes. We haven't done this one for a while. it's pretty damn good. It's pretty solid. Okay. So that's so you can do it. And then just try a bunch of different angles at it. Or go back out and investigate it if you feel like that's cooler. Yeah, it's all very good. And so you're just going to want to practice that. You're just going to want to practice. Yeah, so then that'll get you. So there, it's the, once you can do this, if once you can do that super fast, you can very easily get so in the next step, you'll just do that. But do the work, it's just not before. Yeah, that's the most important practice. It's really, yeah, well, it's not just the angle, it's like being really like working 3D. It's like even if you're looking straight on that, more straight on that. So, yeah, that was it. You practice that, get this pushed out of it, really get that to where you can actually shape that stuff. You got it. Okay, so we're going to push on to a different part of this. So, okay, there's so many different ways to think about and draw a face, but there's check this out, okay? So we know that there's this bony structure in here. We know that there's this like circular bony structure that lives in there and that the mouth surrounds it, kind of like that, okay? Here's a part that's not always paid attention to. You see right here? Okay. the mouth goes like this. There's this fat part of the mouth. It's almost shaped like a heart here. Okay? And you can get away with murder with that. Like you can be like, I'm drawing a face, I'm going to throw in this heart right here. And that can be a very powerful tool for expression. Okay? So like you can take that and go, so the chin is right here. And the chin itself has a fat pad on it. Like it has this fat pad that sits over the top of it. And then underneath the lips, like this whole area is like a fat pad. Okay, so for the lips, for the bottom lip, for the top lip, there's this shape like this. It's like an M. Okay, and there's a shape underneath that's like a W, like that. Okay, and then there's this muscle right here and right here, and frequently the corners of the mouth cut below it. And it's right here and right here. Okay? The nose sits, okay, so sorry. So from here, from there, you see the way that space right there, it's like if I was going to look at this in profile, the bottom lip is like this, and then there's a corner and it cuts down, and then there's this fat pad from the chin right there, and here's this dark space in here between the bottom lip and the chin. And there's these guys over to the side. Okay, so the nose sits right here, and it's got, if you want to think about the nose as down here, you could think about the nose as 3 balls, okay? 2 balls for the nostril and a big one for the ball of the nose. And it goes like this and like this, okay? Sort of meets in the middle like that. And now right here is a fat pad right there. And it's a totally expressive, again, and it comes around like this. So you can see the like one side of it. It might be that this part is getting some shadow. See how the top lip would be in shadow here? Right here, that's the zygomatic arch, okay? Okay. So right above the nostril and below the zygomatic arch, right in there, is this big fat pad, okay? Right here at the edge of the mouth, going underneath this, there's this node right there, okay? Underneath there. And now coming from here, coming from right in here, okay, is this other fat pad, and it goes this way and it wraps around like this. Okay, it comes from here and it goes around and it wraps around the bottom of the chin. It's right in here. So here's the nose, the nostrils, and then over the top there's this fat pad right there. And then over here is this other fat pad. And when someone gets jowly, this thing will start to really drop down. It's very characterful. If you're into drawing like really characterful faces. Hey, you, am I in trouble? And now here's the zygomatic arch. And so you can get between this fat pad and this one, you get a crease sometimes. Like on a really characterful face, you'll see a crease here, and you might see a crease right there. Okay, that's the zygomatic arch. And now back here, that's the angle of the jaw. Okay, you see that right there? That's the angle of the jaw. I think, you guys, that she has to go to the bathroom. I think, does anybody mind if I take her outside for 5 minutes? Okay, I want to... We'll come back. And if you guys want to practice that part of the face, I'll be right back. Okay. Good girl. Can you see how slight adjustments of these things such a really good expression? All right, so then, so there's another one right here and right here. And here's that glabella. And here's the temporal arch, temporal ridge, sorry. Now you see how on this side view of the face, see the bridge of the nose underneath the glabella, it's particularly deep. Look at how I'm going to give it a side plane. Shh, hey, quiet. Okay, see how I give it a side plane? Here, see this one? And then sometimes people have that crease. Okay. So the fat pad in the eyes is actually right there. And the eyelid is here. But over the eye right here, and sometimes when people get much older, it really hangs down. Poor Esther. And you get great wrinkles over here. And then right here on top of the zygomatic arch too.
Me too. Me too, girl.
Okay, the little bit I'm going to offer about eyes is this. So to draw the eye, a lot of times we'll, if you start out with, doesn't matter, girl, you're going crazy, huh? You're going crazy. Okay, so the thing about the eyes that I want to talk to you about is this. So the eyes are, if you start out with something like this, for the eye, one of the pieces that you want to add to it is a kind of a diagonal where you get they don't always go, the eyes don't always go that this is lower than that, but they usually have a section towards the inside on the top that's higher, and then working towards, they usually have this, okay? So even if the eye is set in the head like this, where this inside part is like that, nonetheless, there will be this diagonal. And it makes the shape a lot more handsome than it would be otherwise. A lot more handsome than it would be if you just did that with it. So you start out there and then you just add this lower that way. Okay, the eyeball frequently, I mean, unless you're really terrified, is covered halfway. The pupil usually will have a big old highlight in it. It's almost black, and it's a wet surface, which makes it a highly reflective moment on a person's face, okay? The iris has this really interesting quality where it's translucent, okay? And so what ends up happening is, say that the light is coming from this way, what happens is the eyelid throws a shadow here. All of that stuff kind of goes in shadow. And then what you would expect, because the light is over here, is that you would expect that the iris would be darkest, kind of working its way this way. It would darken that way. But what ends up happening is it's darkening like this, and then as though there were a giant reflected light in it, it tends to lighten down there. Because what's going on, and it's so cool, is that the light goes into it and it sits in there, right? So it's like kind of quasi mystical, right? You think like there's light in people's eyes, right? And there actually is. The light is going in, and it's sitting in there the way that it would with like a glass bottle. And so, but then what happens on the white part of the eye is that the white part of the eye is shaded like a normal white volume. So if the light is coming from over there, we'll have a shadow, and then what's down here is normal form light, okay? Then you have the bottom eyelid, and the bottom eyelid will be catching the light. But then as it turns into the face, it goes into shadow. And then as you move into the corners of it, it very frequently wrinkles. The upper eyelid over here, so the upper eyelid, you have the bridge of the nose, not the bridge of the nose, I'm sorry, the keystone comes in like this, okay? And then you run into the eye socket. This may be lit. In Arcane, they did this really cool thing where they lit that right there. Like, so you come around, you come in through this keystone here and found light right there. I thought it was really cool. And then, but then it, over the eyelid in here is this really deep shadow, and you're working your way this way, and then what happens is there's that fat pad here, and it pushes the eyelid down over on that side, like this. And so a lot of the times, this guy comes over, and the shadow that's in here starts to lessen out. That can be a nice shadow. This can get a good shadow in there. That's the tear duct. The ears right here. Okay, so starting out with the fact of the front of the ear is at about halfway back. Okay, and then you can find where the zygomatic arch, where this arch ends, the zygomatic arch, okay, so the ear is going to start about right there, and it's almost like you could almost consider it like half of a heart shape, okay? Okay. Okay. Now, when you think of the skull, when you think of the head, we think of the head from on top again. The ears sit like this. Okay, so if you're looking at someone, if you're looking at someone straight on, you're going to be seeing their ears. Like we're looking at this guy straight on, we're going to be seeing these ears foreshortened, right? We're going to be seeing them like, get what I'm saying? If the face turns, obviously, so like see this face is turned, so we'll be seeing a good amount of this ear, and that ear disappears. As the face gradually turns, like a face that's like this, but kind of just a little turned, you'll just see a little more of that ear and a little less of that ear. Okay, and that's a nice way to turn a face. All right, hey, come here. All right. Okay, the thing about the outside of the ear, when you're drawing the outside of the... Quiet. Quiet. You drive me crazy. Shh. Okay, the thing about the outside of the ear is this. Thinking about it like okay, you see this shape? And now this is a ribbon. Ends about there. Hey. So when you're sketching the head, you see I've got this here. I go like this and down, and then like that. Does that make sense? So you've got this, you see this overlap here? So it's a ribbon that kind of starts here. You wouldn't see it on that ear. But this one, I want to make the ribbon. And then this could be in shadow right there. There's this little piece of gear right here called the tragus. It's like a little diamond. It's a little triangle right there, mounted on the side of the head. And then down here is the earlobe. So there's the earlobe. Here's the earlobe. There's that ribbon. And then there's one more piece. And it's shaped a little bit like a Y. See, like this. A little bit like a Y, but it bends. And that sits right in here. It's overlapped. And it sits right in there. Like that. And that's the ear canal. And so here you might see it in side view. All right. That's it.